I'm not here to change your mind. I'm only making this video to share my experience. Frankly, because this channel isn't making any money and never really took off, and I'm certainly not taking any money, which extends to company equipment loaned out for the express purpose of making an advertising video. This is the chassis right now of my T-Rex replica, the version 1, and I purchased it 20 years ago. It was retired in 2012. All of the repeats are distorting. That signal on screen is with the wet-dry knob turned full up. So let's rewind to when this all started out. In 2012, I promptly sent an email to T-Rex in Denmark. The first reply said, "I'm not saying you have gum in your ears, but there will always be a slight grittiness to the repeats. I was just getting into tube amplifiers. A little bit later on, Todd Sharp told me the books to read. Because I love tube amps so much I got into working on them for myself. Amico Radio Service Guide. Basic Theory and Application of Electron Tubes." And I didn't know anything about any of it back in 2012. So I followed up with an audio sample. Granted, at that time they agreed, "Yeah, something's not right. All your repeats are distorted. I'm sorry, but it'll have to come back to Denmark. You'll be without the pedal for a few weeks." And there was no American Service Center. Not a big deal to me because I'm not a feather ruffler, but I just didn't want to go through the hassle. So I moved on to the Strymon El Capistan, which I've talked about on the channel before. I paid out of pocket for it at Ludlow Guitars in New York City, so the replica was fully retired and sat unused for a period of many years. A few weeks ago, I had a young player over to the house who had asked me to mentor him on how to get a good sound. He was excited to bring his replica, another version 1 from the old days, and he'd asked me if I would give him a few pointers. I was really disappointed to have to point out to him that his echo's not working right. But to make him feel better, I pulled out my replica from years before that has sat unused, just to show him that mine broke too. And it was at that point that I decided maybe I could take a look at this for myself now. In doing so, the stark contrast between my experiences recently with T-Rex and Strymon couldn't be clearer. Overlapping all of this, I'd run into an issue that was concerning me a bit with the Strymon. So literally, I exaggerate not, at 5:15 p.m. Central Time, I sent Strymon an email. I said, "Look, I bought it 10 years ago. I understand it's completely out of warranty. Could you, would you, do you still service the version 1 El Capistans, of course at customer expense?" By 5:45 p.m., half an hour later, I had an email back from Austin at Strymon. And he said, "I'm glad you got it working again. It's probably fine. But if you run into issues again, yes, of course, we still service them. Just send it out to us, and we'll get you taken care of." I'm happy to report that it wasn't necessary. And to be completely fair, at this point I want to point out that the Strymon is a digital pedal, and the DSP chip in it is programmed by Strymon's engineers, and the algorithm is tightly locked down. And whatever opinion I inject into this, it doesn't have to be yours. I'm not bothered at all by intellectual property and the right to protect that intellectual property, and the liability that showed up when all of a sudden music became free, just because we had an internet connection. But within those parameters, when it's not something like a proprietary, custom-coded algorithm, and the difference standing between something going to the landfill or lasting another 30 years is $1.50 part. In that capacity, my opinion only, I'm a huge right to repair advocate. And T-Rex, which I don't want to beat up on too badly, they went bankrupt in 2019 and came back. They've reissued the replica. But here was my experience with T-Rex. You don't have repeats here.
Yeah.
One repeat. I told Isaac, let me try to get in touch with T-Rex one more time. And this is what happened. Nothing. Radio silence. So what I said is, let me know what the bench rate is, and I'm willing to pay your bench fee if I can ask a tech a few questions. I don't want you to divulge any proprietary information. The same way that AER in Germany wouldn't even send me a note back 2 years in a row, literally, after my Compact 60 literally began smoking. What am I smelling? Speaker's burning up. Because at this point, now it's a matter of, if they won't help me, I'll help myself. Pretty much at this point, just to stick it to T-Rex, because after many days of doing this, literally under a microscope, looking at wired traces, where they go, how the audio signal flows, and getting a feel for the layout of the land, all without a schematic. I forwarded the service emails from 12 years prior, showing that I was a customer from forever ago, and said, I've gotten as far as to figure out that the distortion on mine is beginning on this particular chip. It's a dual gain 16-pin chip, an expander and compressor rolled into one. And the output of that is the first place that I could find the distortion on mine. So I politely asked T-Rex, that chip seems to be obsolete. Could I use the modern equivalent? I'm willing to pay to talk to someone. And they wouldn't even reply with a no. Days later, finding a completely independent fellow in the Netherlands who had serviced a replica doing the exact same thing as my young friends, and documented the entire repair process on his blog, to the point of drawing out a schematic of the analog board, which I'm certain T-Rex doesn't want floating around out there. Very nice fellow, who said email me and be happy to talk to you about it. I'm not asking anyone to devalue themselves. I'm not claiming that a company should fix everything for free for a lifetime. I'm only asking that when you purchase a product, that you have access to support at a cost, or possibly if it's not a proprietary situation. And let's face it, T-Rex did not build the SA571 chip from the ON Semi Corporation, and they did not program it. I found through my own investigation and research and hard work that that's where the distortion is beginning, and it wasn't worth their time to reply. The short-term thrill of buying a new piece of gear, posting about it on the gear page, and companies looking for YouTube advertisements right out of the gate. That is what it is. I can't change the world. But Strymon, all I have to say is, you make world-class sounding stuff. Yes, it's expensive. Someone buys the product, and it's supported. So you can take it for what it's worth. But those were my experiences, and I hope you found them interesting, maybe even useful.